Just like the old days, right, Star Wars fans?
Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars,
Benvenidos, worldwide fans of our planet's hottest entertainment with an edge from a galaxy far, far away. Jaime En Fuego here, welcoming you to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment. And yes, I'm getting over winter, bat with the flu, so thank you for bearing with me here. You can just call me Fuego for short, and I could not at least try to do some discussion about the 6th episode. That's right, Chapter 6, The Prisoner of Star Wars, The Mandalorian. Big props to Dave Filoni and creator Jon Favreau, who are both behind this show. But in this, we have the return of the same director that did Chapter 2, which is where he had initially rescued our beloved little baby Yoda and was, just trying to get back to his ship that in turn got messed up by Jawas and all that craziness. So just to always say that I do Rapido reviews on this, I was definitely thinking about setting this up with, or at least for a few days, with, how craptastic I've been feeling, but let's get onward and get to it, because I would imagine a lot of people are really going to like this episode. Haven't been on social media in a few days or anything, and yet I can just sense the buzz, because this is finally like a full ragtag band of bounty hunters in this episode. But to get you caught up to speed from the previous episode 5 on Tatooine, basically, it was fan service city, as I mentioned in the previous episode, and Baby Yoda is entrusted into the care of this woman who on Tatooine is working on Mando's ship, and he's trying to find a job. Mos Eisley's pretty abandoned, which is kind of crazy. I don't know if that has something to do with the fact that the Empire has been, dissolved and everything, and maybe there is just chaos for leadership in the galaxy, or maybe, I don't know, you're so used to seeing lots of stormtroopers and stuff on Tatooine, and that was not the case. But he teams up with this younger kid who's trying to get into the guild. They go after this sniper assassin girl, and there's some, what's the cloak and dagger, behind the curtain. There's some treachery that goes down. The kid turns on Mando when he realizes the extent of the price on his head from the problems that went down in episode 3, when he basically left the guild, and with the other Mandalorians, well, the Mandalorians that took him in at least, that are still hiding in seclusion and stuff, helped him fight and helped him escape and rescue our beloved little baby Yoda. But there is a mysterious character who shows up at the very end of our previous episode number 5, being Tatooine. There's a lot of speculation that it is in fact Boba Fett escaping from the Sarlacc pit, which is what happened in Tales from Jabba's Palace. If I'm not mistaken, it's either that or Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina. They were two very interesting anthologies that came out in the 90s. All that stuff has been stricken to legends at this point and is not official canon, but just like we saw with various characters that popped up in Rebels and in different shows and stuff like that. Blue General Man, who's on Rebels and who was also in Heir to the Empire and stuff. His name is eluding me, and it's really, really bumming me out, and you guys are going to read me in the comments for not knowing, because I'm just going to consult very quickly and know. But yeah, I've been sick this week, so please give me some slack. But yes, it's either Boba Fett or some people think it's Cad Bane, actually, from the Clone Wars series, and who's also popped up in a couple prequel era comic books and stuff like that, including the Boba Fett, the Jango Fett short, which was in Age of Republic on my recent comic book review. But, enough of all of that. Let's get to this Friday's episode. I'm watching it kind of late in the day. Just been sacking out sleeping the last few days. But, yeah, so we get to all of this just overstuffing the turkey, at least in my regard. So we have an X-Flame of Mandos. We have one of the big brutish, just horn-looking, almost like demon-looking dudes that I remember distinctively from the Mos Eisley Cantina in A New Hope, and played by Clancy Brown, actually. He doesn't really have a lot of dialogue or anything. And then there's another guy who looks extremely familiar, and I can't remember the full extent of what I've seen him in, but he is the guy that obviously after leaving Tatooine, Mando goes and consults for a job, and he's big bearded and bushy and all that other stuff, and he's, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, the whole time talking about just like the old days and so on and so forth, because they did a lot of missions together back in presumably the more ruthless days of Mando, because he definitely has a softer spot, which we saw developing early on, and it becomes even more apparent in this episode when there is some double crossing that goes down on this mission that happens with these other bounty hunters. You've got, once again, another like kind of snarky, not to the degree of like Solo droid or K2SO in Rogue, but still you've got your token droid that's like kind of nefarious, so to speak, helping out with the job, along with the former flame of Lando's. She's obviously a native of Ryloth. I always forget the name of her particular species. Presumably it's like Jabba's homie that had like the like tube hair, and like the dancer girl who gets eaten by the Rancor in Jedi. But yeah, so that is the former flame, and she's terrible in this. She's just like sneering with these like vampire fangs the whole time, and that's one thing I will say. And everybody, I know a lot of people like Bill Burr, don't particularly like Bill Burr. He's not particularly bad in this, but he felt out of place to me being in the Star Wars universe. A lot of people said the same thing about Horatio Sanz, and he was at least under a lot of makeup. But Bill Burr, while his acting as like seemingly the main guy in this group that Mando is joining when they go on this extraction, it's not a heist really, because I mean it kind of is, but it's not a rescue mission either, because it's the guy that they're rescuing isn't exactly the most savory person. It's the sibling of his old flame, and so I don't know. Back to Bill Burr though. Well, I didn't really particularly care for any of the other bounty hunters that he was with in this, or whatever you would classify them as. Burr was the best, but once again, him being in a galaxy far, far away, I was just kind of like, huh? And he's making one-liners like calling people eggheads and stuff like that. I just find it really funny with Bill Burr, and the fact that he wants to talk so much shit about Marvel and all of that, and yet he's a big Star Wars guy, and he'll obviously be in this in a primary role because he grew up with that and didn't grow up with the Marvel movies. And I don't think every Marvel movie is flawless or anything like that, and the guy was even in Joker in a very, very small role. So I don't know, he runs his mouth a lot. I don't particularly care for that, and I guess that is going in with an element of bias, but once again, I'm giving credit to his performance, but yet to the fact that he felt out of place, almost like I'm not sure how in place Kerry Russell is going to feel in this upcoming installment. I felt with Laura Dern in Last Jedi. I mean, there's certain people that when they show up in a galaxy far, far away, you're just kind of like, huh, I'm not so sure about this. But yeah, so they're going after this person they're trying to break free, this like criminal, whatever. I don't know, they never really completely explain the full extent of it, and these are always non-spoiler in these Rapido reviews, and I'm just giving you kind of the basis of the framework here. Yeah, but you don't really learn if this is a criminal particularly. I mean, at least it's a criminal in the eyes of the New Republic because, incarcerated, and Mando is apprehensive of this sort of extraction and breakout because of the fact that he's like, we're not trying to, take somebody from other just, I guess, seedy people like us. We're going after what now rules the galaxy, and so that's a bigger thing and with potentially larger repercussions, obviously. And so that's a thing in this, but he needs the money. Still protecting little Baby Yoda, goes along with it. There's very little Baby Yoda in this. Once again, Mando is still just kind of leaving him stowed away and hidden on the ship, and just not keeping the best eye on him. But the juggling act has to be tough. So yes, it is a it's a jailbreak mission, and it shows how the post Return of the Jedi, landscape is, I guess, to a degree, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I didn't like any of the ragtag bounty hunters that he's teamed with in this particular regard, that he is at odds with pretty much initially, and things change over the course of the episode. Yeah, Clancy Brown, the girl who plays his flame, the Ryloth lady, essentially. Both of them are pretty forgettable, despite decent looking makeup and costuming work and stuff like that. I will say that it's cool being back on like a rebel ship, so to speak, and seeing the costuming of one character in particular. There's still major droid employment that I found kind of interesting. But also, this is where the show does not exemplify its budget, I guess, is when we're on ships, and when there's like a space, and like small space station of sorts that the episode starts off at, where Mando meets his old guy who's like just like the old days and all that stuff. But that's where the show does not just show warts and all its budget, is in those sort of contained situations. It's when you're going for bigger like city and spaceports and stuff like that, and the lack of extras. It was especially emphasized in the previous episode, the Gunslinger, but maybe that was more so from just the dying out of Mos Eisley as a prominent port in the first place that had a heavy Imperial presence and stuff. So yeah, as far as this episode goes, without spoiling the end of it, it does, for me, redeem itself in the end, last like 15 minutes or so, with what's actually going down, and there's like double crossing after double crossing without telling who does who to what and stuff. And the action is cool. There's some cool set pieces, and yeah, Mando goes into badass mode and shows, after all of Burr's character's skepticism about if he's worthy of this title and this reputation and to wear that armor and stuff. Yeah, he actually shows that is indeed, worthwhile, worthy, and a justified case for that to be, who he is affiliated with, even if we know at this particular point, and it's not a spoiler, we know at this particular point that he is not actually from Mandalore. He's not a real Mandalorian. He was taken in by them and, trained and given the armor after the death of family and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go as far as saying it's one of my least favorite episodes, but it's back to, it's still, once again, and as I, a week or so ago when I was watching some of the criticisms of episode 5, people were saying that, okay, 4 and 5 felt very much like just story of the week, side quest sort of thing, as opposed to really tying in directly with the main story. And I'm going to say this one is once again doing that exact same thing. Last week's was probably my favorite of these three, of the week, so to speak, bits. But I don't know, this had it had some charming moments. It had some cool bits. I really especially enjoy predicament that Mando is put in the back half of the episode, and how he goes about getting out of it. It's pretty cool. That was where everything shined for me, and I did really like the ending of this episode, although once again, I'm not particularly sure where the journey takes us from here, with only 2 episodes left, and weird marketing material here, right? In the fact that, we saw our former MMA babe who was in episode 4, like very prominently shown in the marketing material. Same with the robot voiced by Taika Waititi that turned out to be IG-11, not IG-88, just like we're all pretty much on the same page now that this Mandalorian is not our Boba Fett. But that doesn't mean Boba Fett couldn't still show up, like I mentioned earlier. But I feel like there's been some misleading approachings as far as everybody thinking it was going to be an ongoing sort of storytelling with main characters throughout, as opposed to just the Love Boat kind of thing, where it's like, oh, we got this person this week, we got this person this week, this person this week, or when we would like see a one and done guest star on like TNG or something like that. Or the X-Files or various others that I watched in the 90s as a kid. So it's not deterring my love of what Filoni and specifically Jon Favreau have done with this. But I mean, we're a week from Rise of Skywalker now, you know, and I hope that I am feeling completely recovered to properly enjoy it and stuff. But yeah, Rise of Skywalker is next Thursday. We're talking like 6 days, and I have my IMAX 3D reserved seats for 6 p.m. my time on Thursday evening, and I'm gonna rush home and try to get a review up as quickly as possible, and hoping that I can get some more Star Wars coverage up in the coming days. I had finished reading Lords of the Sith before I came down, you know, with the floozy, and wanted to still finish up some reviews that I had filmed way back of the original trilogy, and I was trying to watch some Clone Wars and all this other stuff. But hey, winter sickness sucks, man, and you do what you can. But I was gonna do my best to get this one up. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Gracias, arigato, danke, merci. I've been Jaime En Fuego, and you can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube here, obviously, where some of my favorite films of the year have been reviewed, including Knives Out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Good Boys, Wild Rose, Them That Follow, or actually no, maybe that ended up on The Horror Show if I remember correctly, because it did have enough of a horrific aspect. So yes, while I have my stuff here that will be approaching awards season here in the coming weeks and months as we head towards the Oscars in 2020, I also covered the spectacular on The Horror Show, youtube.com/The Horror Show channel. I do a Stephen King show every Saturday. I mean, the channel as a whole has seen so much exponential and awesome growth in the last couple of years, and we do at least 1 episode a day, sometimes 2. Cecil has just, he's right on the end of his campaign, if I recall correctly, of Dylan's New Nightmare, but you can spread word about the project, which is a unofficial fan sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare from 1994, by just sharing the trailer, which is on the Horror Show YouTube channel. Even if you can't donate anymore, you can still just spread the word about the project, and it's coming in October of 2020. So yeah, there's still a lot of time left, you know, between now and then, but there's a lot of awesome stuff that the Horror Show is going to be doing in all of that time leading up. So yeah, I've been Jaime En Fuego. Y'all have been awesome as always, and until the Reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, Cinemigos, and constant readers and viewers alike. But I am hopeful that we get to share more palaver sooner rather than later. And until then, may the Force be with you. Fraternidad.